Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 535. Today we're going to take a look at Colony. Now this is a new game from Bezier Games coming out about now, but I believe right about Essen or at Essen it will come out officially. And what this is a sort of futuristic themed dice building or sort of deck building game with dice. You will have sort of a starting set of cards that you can use, you can activate those, and then you can be rolling dice to sort of generate these different types of resources or currency used to buy other cards, which will give you points and also different special abilities. And then you will set up the display of cards that you can purchase, and it's going to be very different every game. So a lot like Dominion, you kind of have some starting cards that are always in play and some more, general, generic types of cards. And then you can really kind of tweak your experience to be very attacky. You can actually have trading. You can do kind of more towards the engine building sides of things. But before I start reviewing it, let's go into how the game works, and then I'll tell you what I think of it. Okay, I just want to kind of give you a sense of the insert because it actually does give you a sense of the game a little bit. So of course you got the rule book, and here we've got sort of a Dominion-like insert where we have here the score tracker, and so players will have little tokens in their color, and you're going to play to a certain number of points. So in a 4-player game, you'll play to 15, in a 2-player game, you play to 20, and so on. And then in here, you can see these have like different types of cards. So everybody have this different starting hand or deck here. And you can see these are double-sided. I'll explain that in a minute. So you've got your sort of warehouse 2.0 and your supply exchange 2.0 there. But everybody will start with the same 4 cards in their color. And then you have a bunch of fallout shelters that will be out here on the board. You can collect these. And then you have here the starting cards. So you're going to have a uranium mine, for example. And this will give you a die that is a 6. And you'll have this one here, which is a fiber mill, which will give you a die that is a 5, and so on. So these will be sort of like these resource generating types of cards, and these will always be available for purchase in every game. Now you can see here is the purchase cost up there. So you need 3 3s and 2 2s. Or this one, for example, you need a pair of 6s and a pair of 2s there. Or you might have something a little bit more interesting here, which is you need a 6 and then 4 of a kind. Now everybody has these little player references that you can use, and then you're going to go ahead and pick from these other remaining cards, and there are different types of cards. So if you look up here, we've got the 3 attack cards, we've got here some kind of engine building cards, some trading and defense cards here. So these you can kind of mix up and play as you want. The game gives you a few different sort of suggested layouts. If you kind of have a very attacky game, you have some attack cards and some defense cards, you have some engine building cards. You can really play around with this and be very extreme with it if you want. This is going to pop off here, and we're going to have a bunch of different dice. Now there's 2 different types of dice. There's these solid white ones here, and these are called stable resources. You can keep these if you want between rounds. And you also have these unstable dice, these nice frosted dice here. These are unstable, so they're going to come during your turn, and then they're going to disappear if you don't use them on your turn. Now the last thing we have here is the player tokens for the score, and also these little bits here, these chips. And these you can acquire during the game. Now you can collect these as much as you want. You can spend up to 3 of these at the start of your turn, and these can give you these unstable dice. But the thing is like you have this resource, you just don't know what it is, because each of the different resources represents like a different type of good. Okay, so I've just set up a few cards here to give you some examples. Now your turn is very simple. You're going to start each turn off probably with at least 1 or more of these stable dice, and they're going to have the fixed number, whatever they had in the previous round. To start with the game, you have 3 to start with, and you take those off. Now they're available for you to use. Then the first thing you're going to do is take 3 dice out of the supply and roll them. So you're going to roll them like so. You're going to then keep 1 of the dice, and we'll go ahead and keep the 5, and then we'll pass the other 2 dice to the player to our left. Now in a 2-player game, 1 person will keep the die, then you get the other one back. In a 3-player game, the player to your left will choose a die, and then the 3rd place player will get that one. And then in a 4-player game, whoever the 4th player to your left is doesn't get a die, but they will on the later turns. So you're going to have these dice then to use, and you can also spend, as I said, up to 3 of these. You'll have these through different parts of the game, and then you can get then one of these unstable resources, which you roll, and then now you've got that, and again you've got to use that. So then you're going to go ahead and activate cards that you have, and then also probably purchase other cards. So here's the cards that you have here. Let's see. Now the first one we probably want to take a look at here is the supply exchange. Now this one you can take any pair and turn it into any other die that you wish. And I should say, oops, that this is actually a stable die. So if it's black like that, it means it could be unstable or stable. And if it's white, then it's going to be stable. Or if, in this example here, it's gray, then it's an unstable die. So that's the exact type of die you have to use. So you can take any two dice here, which we have a good example for here, these 2 6s, and we wanted to make them, I don't know, a 5, then we could do that. We could turn those into a 5 and get rid of those like that. So that's the supply exchange. And then you have here the construction. Now the first thing you probably will do early is get one more of these little chips here. The other thing you can do, you can actually use this to purchase. And I should say you can only do these once per turn. You can just kind of tap them to show that you've used them. And then this one allows you to purchase one of these version 1.0 cards, because as I showed you before, they do have a version 2.0 on the back. So let's say we had this one here, we had a pair of 6s and a pair of 2s. We could buy this one here, and then we get that down here. And then this one again will give us a unstable 5 when we use it. And the other thing it will do is, if we look at the bottom here, let's see if it shows up. Yep. So that will give you a point. So all of the buildings have a variety of points. Like this uranium mine here will give you 2 points when you build it. And what you do is you just buy, and sometimes you can discard cards, but you just do what you're going to do on your turn and then look at and count up how many points you have and just kind of evaluate that at the end. Now one thing you might also do here is the upgrade. You can do this once per turn as well. And you need a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can take a card and then flip it over, and then it's 2.0 stars. So you can actually upgrade this. So now you only need a 2, 3, 4 to do an upgrade. One thing you might upgrade here is your warehouse. So if you upgrade that, boom, then you have some extra dice that you can store between rounds. If you upgrade the supply exchange, you can take any 2 dice and turn them into any dice. They don't have to be matching like they did here on the side 1. And all of these have this. So for example here, the uranium mine, this has a 6 that's unstable. You upgrade it, you get a stable one. Well, that's much more useful. And they all have different things here. Let's look at some different examples now. We have here an attack card. So this is a swindler here. If you activate this, you can sort of force an exchange. You can exchange an opponent's any die for any other die. If you upgrade this, you exchange the opponent's die for any other die, or 2 for 2. So it gets a little bit more nasty. However, you have here a defense card, which is this force field. It says when built, add a die below. You're going to roll that. When attacked, you reduce that by 1. And then if that is below, if the die is then reduced down to 1, you remove it. So then you know the force field's been used up. So you can use that to prevent attacks. And then you've got an upgraded version of that. So when you get it, you just get a 6. So remember, on this side you have to roll, and so you may not get a very good force field, but now you're going to guarantee a good force field that's going to prevent many, many attacks. You've got other ones here. This is a time lock vault here. You can actually store extra stuff here like that. And no, it's a different one. Let's see. Here's a trading one. This one is so you can trade with one opponent, then both of you and your opponent gain a stable resource that you can roll. Now you both have to agree on these trades. And if we look at the upgraded version here, trade with one opponent, then you gain 2 and your opponent gains 1. So the other thing to note here, which I should have mentioned earlier, see how when I buy this it gives me 2 points, and then I upgrade it and it'll give me an additional point. So now it's worth 3 points as it's upgraded. And these other ones here will also be give you sometimes more points there like that. Now one interesting thing that you can do is you can discard a card from your supply, anything that you have here, and then you're going to gain these stable dice equal to the difference in points between you and the leader. So if you're like 4 points behind, you can trash maybe, I don't know, you wouldn't trash upgrade, but you know, maybe something, and then you would then get a whole bunch of dice that you could then have for your next turn, so you have a lot more dice to choose from. So there's a little bit of engine build up, and then kind of the whole idea of trashing, figure out when to trash to help yourself try to catch up and make yourself more efficient. Oh, the last thing I want to talk about, there's different kinds of scoring cards. Now you're always going to have these fallout shelters, and I'm going to explain these. So like I said, you need a 6 and then 4 of a kind to purchase, and these are going to be worth points sort of equal to the number that you have, or it's going to go up. So if I've got 1, that's worth 1 point. If I've got 2 fallout shelters, they're going to be worth 3 points, and then so on. Now you can upgrade these. This is kind of interesting. So if you upgrade this, then that's not focusing there. If you have 1, it's worth 2 points, but if you have 2, it's worth 6. But you can't mix these. You can't like upgrade one of these and then say, hey, I've got 2, so now I've got 6. No, you have 2 different sets. So you can have a set of level 1s and a set of level 2s if you want. But you can get points pretty quick, you know, if you can get 4 of a kind quickly. Now there are other sort of just scoring cards here. So this one costs 4 6s and 2 3s. And so this is when built, you put a 1 below. And then the prepare step is the first step of every turn. So you're going to increase that by 1. So it's going to go up a point each round. So that's very nice. You can just have that. Now you can upgrade it here. And then you can say when you upgrade it, you add the dice from the other side, but then instead it's going to increase by 2 every turn. So you can get this and then bam, upgrade it, and then now you're on your way. So that's kind of a variety of the types of cards that you're going to see. But in terms of the turn structure, it's very simple. You take your dice off that you got. Remember, you're going to be drafting dice, so you're going to get new dice added to you as the other players take their turn. You're going to add 3 new dice, and then you're going to go to town and try to sort of, you know, manipulate the dice, and then try to purchase, you know, new cards and sort of set up your engine. And again, the variability in the setup is really going to dictate sort of how the pace of the game goes and how quickly the game might end or how quickly it may not end. Okay, so that is Colony. What do I think of it? Well, it really reminds me of Favor of the Pharaoh, which they came out with last year at Bezier Games. I gotta say I like this one a little bit better because I think there's more variety here. Now, there's probably the same amount of powers and things, but the types of powers that this has, I think, is what makes it interesting. So you have the trade powers, which I haven't really been able to get to play with a group that really wants to play with them, but I can see the potential there. So that's the part I kind of not sure about, because I just haven't really seen them come to their full potential, because I can see a group that really likes to get into the wheeling and dealing and really want to trade, which I like to do. That could be very, very cool. So I think there's potential there for that, which I haven't realized. I can kind of see the potential. Now in terms of the attack and defending, that's another thing that I really enjoy, is the sort of the way the attack adds to it. And this is something that Favor of the Pharaoh doesn't really have, is you sort of tweaks the race a little bit. It doesn't just become pure engine, pure dice mitigation, you know, over and over and over again, which some of these games tend to be. So you've got to really sort of consider building up a little bit of defenses, or playing possibly very aggressively and trying to go after and sort of pick and choose and take certain dice. So I think kind of comboing that, you know, with the trading is going to be a very different experience than if you have a lot of resource cards and with just a bunch of the scoring cards. And I think all of those different approaches are neat, because you can be kind of enjoyable for different types of players and different types of groups. And you maybe splash in like one attack card. And again, it has that kind of Dominion thing where it's like, okay, well, let's throw in this one card and then see how that works. Now, I'm not gonna get all mathy, but the thing about Dominion is you can kind of math that one out a little bit, where you can just like buy a card and be like, okay, if you get really good at Dominion, you can just like, okay, do this, this, and this, or just buy gold or whatever. I don't know, but you know, so you have those things you can kind of really plan your route. This one you can't. You can sort of go at your route, but because of the dice rolling, you have to kind of go at the probability and not just like, this is my path, I'm going, da da da. You've got to deal with sort of the adapting to the dice to maybe have more than one path to victory that you're trying to choose. So I really also like the upgrade. That's the second thing that I really like about it, is it reminds me of, what's the name of that game? I forgot the name of the game. It's just spaced out. I was just thinking of it like 2 minutes ago. But the Flip City, that's what it is. And it's a sort of a deck building game that you can upgrade. And that's the interesting thing, is like, okay, do I buy a new thing or do I upgrade this thing? And so you can really sort of, you have to kind of train yourself, I think, to get to know what's possible in the upgrade, because that's something I've seen where I just go, oh, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy this, and I was like, oh, well, if I'd have upgraded this other card, that would have been much better than buying this other new card to my engine. You know, it would have worked much, much better. So I like that aspect of it. It gives more variety, you know, in the cards beyond just like, it does this, and you know, you get a 3 every turn. But now you can get a stable 3, which is a little bit more interesting, because you know, maybe these other cards, they take 3s a lot, you know. So so there's a lot more kind of variety, I think, compared to Favor of the Pharaoh. But That's immediately what this strikes and reminds me of. I think a lot of people are going to get a kick out of this. It also reminds me of Dice City. If you've played that, I didn't review that. That's another game I enjoyed that had that kind of attacking and combo type of thing where you're building up your tableau. This one seems like a sort of a step up, I guess, and a little bit slightly from Dice City. So I think if you like that game or favored the Pharaoh, this is going to be right in your ballpark. Or if you like Castles of Burgundy and that kind of game where you have lots of dice manipulation, lots of kind of special effects. But the game does play pretty quickly, about a half an hour once you kind of get into it. So I think that's also a nice bonus as well. So it's something you can also play repeatedly as well. You can say, okay, we use these 7 cards, now I'm going to grab the other 7 and see what that does. And I always like when a game can do something like that. So definitely take a look at Colony. Thanks.